Hey y'all, it's Melanie from Melanie's Gifts. I am so excited. I went to Target tonight to waste a few minutes. Wasn't even planning on buying anything, and look what I found for $5. 12-inch round, half an inch thick, with the hangers already included on the back. So, easy work for me. So the supplies you're going to need for this project is the 12-inch round, obviously. I'm going to use this stencil, which might be a little hard to see without something behind it. So as you can see, it's just kind of a welcome sign. It's nice and blank on top, which is going to give me room to do a ribbon. I am going to keep this kind of natural. I'm going to, instead of painting it like I have most of the other wall hangings, I'm going to combine things, and I'm going to burn this one. And then I'm going to make a bow for the top using different burlap ribbon. And please don't look at my mess of ribbon. It came unrolled the other day and I just have not rolled it back up yet. So that's there. You'll also need wood burning paste, um, mineral oil for after we're done to protect the board, and then a paintbrush to apply um, the burn paste. I have two paintbrushes, one's old, one's new. The new one I keep for paint, the old one I use for the burn paste. So we're going to start off by sanding our board. I have some 220 grit sandpaper. It's actually a sanding block. I like these because you can actually wash them and reuse them, which is nice, provided you don't do anything too crazy with them, which I don't. It's this. So you just kind of sand away. You do this because you want everything to be nice and smooth and get down in there. But now, as you notice, there's a nice layer of dust. So once you give it a little sand, nothing major, make sure you do take your paper towel before you do anything else and wipe off the top. All right. So now we got our board all sanded and ready to go. The next thing I'm gonna do is take the stencil that I'm gonna use. Now, I've said this in a video previously. Honestly, I like the silk screen stencils better, but I own these. So, reality is, I'm going to use them because they're free. If I wanted to buy something like this for the silk screen, I'd probably be spending about 10 bucks. Which, like I said, in the future, if I buy anything, that is what I'll do. It's worth the money. But since I already own this and haven't even ever used it before, um, I'm going to use it now. So I think I'm going to do a combination of paint and burn paste, mostly because I'm running low on burn paste, but we'll see. So I got a nice little glop on my paintbrush, and as you can see, I don't have a lot left. I have ordered some. It should be here soon, hopefully. But I'm just gonna, some people will tape it in place. I don't. I'm just lazy, honestly. But I do hold it down because you want to make sure that the stencil does not lift while you're putting the paste on, because wherever that paste is going to burn. So if it bleeds from the letters, it's going to burn. And unfortunately, wiping it off is not going to fix that. I mean, it's not the end of the world if that happens, because there's a such thing as sandpaper, and you can, of course, sand it down and start over again. But, anybody that's ever sanded anything knows it's not really a fun job. So if you don't have to do that, you don't want to. Um, Not to mention, honestly, it takes a really long time because you don't want to sand too much at a time, because you don't want to, like a concaved project where you sanded something out and you don't want it to look bad. So if you can avoid doing that, if you can avoid the bleeds just by holding it down a little tighter, I would definitely do so. So again, I'm just, taking some out of my container with the paintbrush. It does come with this little tool that you can use, but honestly, I find using that kind of wastes a lot of the um, burnt paste. That's what I did at the beginning, and it's just, you use way more burn paste than necessary. With a paintbrush, you have a lot more control on exactly where that burn paste is going, so you're not wasting as much. And when you're doing this to try to make a little bit of money, you want to spend as little as possible. Um, so I don't want to be buying burn paste because it all got wasted and ended up on a paper towel somewhere because it was too much for the project. Now, this does take a little time, as you can see, just because, you want to make sure you're going over the letters well. And then once I finish the letters, I'm still going to kind of go back over spots, find any spots I might have missed. Because as this sits, it kind of darkens the wood a little bit because the wood's getting wet. It's like a paste. There's a little bit of moisture to it. So the wood's getting wet. So you can kind of see, there's some light spots where you might have missed. You can kind of go over them again. I also have a set of markers which are here. They're burn paste markers, and I use them often to go over little places that I may have missed. So I have my welcome spelled out. I'm not putting the burn paste on the bottom. I don't like this design. I don't think I want this design. So all I did was the actual welcome. I did not put any burn paste on the bottom. So we're just gonna let that sit for a couple minutes. In the meantime, I'm just gonna close up my paste and put it back in the box. And then maybe do a little cleaning. You want to let that paste sit there for at least 2 minutes. 2 to 3 minutes will let it kind of soak into the board a little bit. This way, when you go to heat it up using your heat gun, oh, I didn't show that as part of the supplies. You will need a heat gun. You do need heat to burn wood. I have 2 different types of heat guns. I have this little one here, and then I have this baby. You need one like this. This is not gonna burn the wood. You'll be here for 6 weeks and it will never get down deep like it needs to. So don't use these. These definitely have their purpose. They're great for shrink wrap. They're great for, like, if I stick something down and then decide I don't want it there and need to heat that glue back up. So it definitely has its purpose, and I do love this thing. But when it comes to the wood burning, you want to stick to a heavy-duty gun. So now this is sat here for a few minutes while I wash my paintbrush and talk to you guys. So now what I'm doing is I'm just taking a paper towel and I'm gonna go over it and just kind of pat it down and soak up any extra paste that might be there, and then just kind of peel it off. Fold it in on itself so that you don't get it everywhere, and kind of set it aside. And then I'm going to pull the stencil off. And I'm just going to stick the stencil in the sink for the moment. I will wash that in a few minutes. So now you can see that my welcome is nicely centered. And I'm going to take my heat gun. Actually, I'm going to get a drink first, since it was in the way of the heat gun and we don't want to spill it everywhere. Now I'm going to take my heat gun, just make sure everything that's out of the way. And I'm going to just kind of hold the heat gun over. You don't want to hold it in one spot for too long. If you do, you'll end up burning the wood, which, you can sand it, but again, it's a pain. Why do it? If you just pay attention and make sure to move it around a little bit here and there, you won't burn the wood. As you can see, as I'm talking, I'm just kind of going back and forth, And you can probably see a little bit that the wood is starting to get a little darker, where it's starting to actually burn into the wood. Sometimes when you're doing this, there'll be like a little stripe that went color or whatever. You can just kind of change the angle, and oftentimes that takes care of the problem. If it doesn't, like I said, we have that marker that we can use when we're done. So we're just going to sit here and do this for a few minutes. Alright, now it's pretty much burnt. I'm just going over it real quick, getting any spaces that I see that might be a little light still. But everything looks pretty good. Now before I even sand it down, because we are going to sand it down again, because as you might be able to see it, it bubbles up a little bit, so you got to sand that down so that you don't have a rough piece of wood. You want it to be nice and smooth when you touch it. But I'm going to grab one of these pens because there's a couple of spots here that are just a little light. Like if you look at the bottom of the M, there's a little teeny spot there that I'm going to fill in. And I don't know, I might make it so that it doesn't look stencil. I might fill in the little lines. Because I don't always love when something looks like it's a stencil. I want it to look like I wrote it. So I'm just going to fill in those little spaces, and anywhere that I see that might look a little light, like I missed it with when I put the paste on. Now you want to be careful with this because you don't have a stencil, and like I said, anywhere you put this is going to burn, whether you want it to or not. It is the way it is. So just, go slow. It's not a race. Pay attention to what you're doing. And you can fill in those spaces like I did. In a minute, you won't even know this was a stencil. Alright. Oops, oops, oops. Now, I'm going to hold it up again. So you can see I filled in everywhere that looked like a stencil, so now it looks like it's one handwritten thing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take my hoop gun again. I'm going to go over it real quick so that everywhere I just added gets nice and burned. Alright, now be careful when you put this down. Don't put it on the cord like I did one time, because now I have a nice little melted spot in my cord. Thank goodness I caught it right away and it didn't actually melt through. But I was kind of pissed. I think I owned it one day when it happened. Alright, so I'm going to take my sandpaper again, and I'm going to just lightly... Yes, it looks like my board's getting dirty. Don't worry about it, because there's this thing called a paper towel. And when you wipe it off, it'll come fairly clean again. Now, this is the first time this has happened in one of my videos, though it has happened in real life a couple of times, so let me show you. When I burned it, look what happened to my L. It did not burn all the way through. that is where this pen comes in so handy, because now I can just color that spot and anywhere else that is giving me that faded feeling, and just not holding the burn as it should. Again, I'm just going to take my heat gun and there we go. So again, I'm just going to take my sandpaper again and go over it. And I'm going to do the same thing here. This L just didn't want to take the color for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on, but it just didn't want to. So we're gonna make sure it does, because I don't want to sell something that looks bad. You know, I have a reputation that I want to build for myself of quality work. So leaving those blank spaces kind of takes away from that quality. Now, unfortunately, I have smudged a little bit, which sucks. But I'm going to take a little water, I think. Now, you don't want to use much because this has not been protected yet, but I just have some of that black that really got everywhere, so I just want to wash it. And then I'm just going to use my gun to dry it again. This video is probably not going to go online because I think I just ruined this. That blows. So I kind of screwed up my project, but that's okay because art is a wonderful thing and you can kind of pivot as you need to. So what happened is I smudged the crap out of it. And when I did, black stuff kind of went everywhere. And unfortunately, I couldn't get it out. I tried washing it. I tried wiping it off. I tried everything. Wouldn't come off. So what I'm doing now is I'm using some paint with some water. And I am changing the background color. Don't forget to go all around the sides. You don't want to have green everywhere and then these brown sides that are sticking out. So, and like I said, it's just paint and water because I didn't want it to be dark. I want to be able to see, you know, what I've painted. And I used one of these foam things because one, you can get it wet without issue. And it spreads it nicely without leaving any paint strokes. So now, that's what it looks like. So I'm gonna let it dry before I do anything else to it. So I'll be back in a little bit. Hey, it's Melanie from Melanie's Gifts. Today's tutorial is actually going to be fixing a sign that I started making that I absolutely hate. And it's because I screwed it up at the beginning, and then I painted it a weird color, and it's just not something I'm enjoying. So I am redoing it. So here I am. Let me explain what happened. I started off with just a plain wood-colored board. Unfortunately, I burned the word welcome into it. When I did, I accidentally got the ash from the wood like deep down in the wood, so I could not get it out, no matter how hard I tried. I just didn't want to come out. So then I said, okay, I'll paint it and see what happens. But of course I didn't want a dark paint because we need to see the word welcome. So what I did is I took some green paint and I kind of diluted it with some water. When I did that, it became so green that like it wanted to blast my eyes out. I did not enjoy it. So what I've done now is the same thing with some brown to try to tone down that green a little bit. Difference is with the green, I did not wipe it off. With the brown, as you can see, I'm applying and kind of wiping because I want some of the brown to stay. I just don't want it all to be brown, but that brown is taking some of that shocking green away, and I'm enjoying it much more. It kind of gives it a rustic look instead of a neon look, because that's what it was reminding me of, was a neon color. Now don't forget your sides, because you don't want to end up with bright green sides. And yeah, I guess my little pad is done. I'm gonna have to glue that sucker back together. But you don't want any bright green. You want to use this pad here and kind of get some of that green to fade out a little bit and become a little bit more rustic looking. Yeah. So now, as you can see, it's still green, but it's got a lot of brown in it. To help dry it a little bit, this is a little trick. We take our heat gun. Again, you don't want to leave it in one space too long, you will burn the wood. But it will dry it fairly quickly. Here we go. This is what we got so far. I think that looks a lot better. Now I'm going to make some sort of ribbon, bow, something or other. I'm not sure what yet. Haven't decided. I'm going to pause this for now, and once I figure out what I'm going to do as far as bows, I will come back and finish this video. In the meantime, have a great night.